y'all. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank y'all so much for everyone who's joining. I'm super excited for this panel. I love all these ladies. I love just their energy about diabetes in general. So I'm going to pass it off to Kai and let her just get it going.
Hey everybody, happy Friday. Thank you guys for joining us. We are talking about, well, we will be talking about one of my favorite subjects, self-advocating. But before we dive into that, I want everyone to get to know these lovely ladies that I have the opportunity to share this panel with. So I'm going to start with Miss CJ. If you could just tell us a quick little, who you are. If you want to share the type of diabetes you have, feel free. If not, that is absolutely okay as well.
All right. So hi, my name is CJ Walker. I am from Virginia. I'm 40 years old, married with 3 children, and I'm living with type 2 diabetes. I've been diagnosed since 2019, and ever since I just started advocating for others just based off the experiences that I have, and I'm just really looking forward to this sharing what I've learned with you.
Thank you for joining us. And Miss Liz.
Hi, I am Liz Kimbrough. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American. I'm out here in the woods in Pennsylvania, and I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic in 2014, so about 6 years ago.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Miss Shay.
Hey everyone, my name is Shay Webb and I am from Wilmington, North Carolina, and I've had type 1 diabetes since November 5th, 2007. So I was 8 years old at the time. And like many of the ladies on here, I have been advocating since I was a little girl, and now I am a college graduate from University of North Carolina, Wilmington, go Seahawks, with my bachelor's in clinical research, and now I have my master's there, and it feels like everything I do, I circle it back to diabetes. So even though it can be like a hindrance at times, it's definitely a blessing in disguise.
All right, thank you. And definitely not, last but never least, right? Miss Anita Nicole. For those of you who might not know her, this is Miss Anita Nicole. And go ahead and tell the people that don't know you, because I feel like everyone knows you.
Not everyone. Wait for the whole world. No, I'm just kidding. So my name is Anita Nicole, diagnosed type 1 November 12th, 1998. I remember it because it was my dad's birthday. Yeah, that was such a great birthday gift, right? It's like on his birthday, he gets a phone call, your daughter's in the emergency room. Like, awesome birthday gift. I didn't initially start advocating. Well, I wouldn't say really advocating. It was just more speaking out because of, I felt like there was a lot of ignorance with type 1 diabetes. And I felt like that ignorance was caused because we try so hard to look like everyone else.
We're going to get into that. Don't give them too much just yet.
But that's what caused me to start speaking out.
Okay.
Because I got tired of the misinformation, and I don't feel like it's out there that's the problem. I feel like it's here, because we try so hard to hide it. That's where the misinformation continues to spread.
Gotcha. And I guess I'm the last one, but I'm Kai. I am type 1 as well. I was originally diagnosed as type 2 in 2010, finally received my correct diagnosis, and here we are. I didn't become outspoken about diabetes, period, till maybe 6-7 years ago, but here we are, and that's going to ride us into this meaningful, because it is very meaningful conversation, right? So let's kick it off. Y'all ready? Because I'm ready. All right, so our first question, and we already have some questions that we're going to ask, right? So what does advocating mean to you? Anybody can jump in here, because I will call you out if you don't jump in.
That's like hiding in the back of the class. Okay, no. For me, advocating, See, I don't know. I don't really call it advocating. I just call it speaking the truth.
Okay.
You know, just being honest, being blunt, being upfront about it. Like, it's been deemed advocating. I guess that's what I do now, but it was just more, I'm just being me, you know.
So you call it using your voice.
Yeah, that's all it is. Just speaking out, using my voice, being vocal and everything. So I don't know. Like I said, I guess it's advocating, but for me, it's just me being me.
Okay, that's cool.
I think like advocating is also like being that voice for the voice that isn't heard in the room. So the underrepresented voice, the one people aren't always exactly listening to, just kind of, you know, speaking out for it. And honestly, if you look historically, because I'm like a huge history buff, huge history nerd, and I love it, but it's almost like our today's advocates are our ancestors' activists. So I see a lot of overlap, and you know, sometimes putting your neck on the line for things, or you know, saying things that don't exactly make sense at the time, but you know, standing by them even if it doesn't affect you, but it might affect some other person down the line.
I can relate to what you just said, right? A huge part of me is team everybody should have access to anything, right? Any medical device, medicine that is supposed to save your life, you should have it. And I often get asked, like, how do you feel, or how does it feel, or how did you feel when you couldn't afford something? And I'm like, but I've never been in their shoes, so why did you assume that? But that doesn't mean that I won't use my voice, because those that know me know that I'm loud and proud and I don't care, and that I will always stand up for those who don't have that voice or aren't as loud as I am. So everything that you put there, I relate to all of that. CJ, Liz, either one of you want to hop in?
I'll hop in. For me, self-advocacy is just making sure that your desires and your needs are clearly communicated, and just ensuring that you have the same chances in life as anybody else. Like you said, as far as like with healthcare and your diabetes treatment, or just even getting accommodations from your employer or school, you just have to speak and make sure that your desires and needs are communicated, so you can have those same rights and choices.
No, I completely agree with you.
I would say self-advocacy for me means survival and livelihood.
Okay.
So making sure that you're being given the right medications and that you have access to them, that can mean life or death for some people. And quality of life, just because we're alive doesn't mean our lives are everything that we want it to be, that it's functional, that it's painless. And those are things that sometimes we have to get through self-advocacy.
Okay, no, so those are good, right? Which you guys made it easy for me, because I wasn't sure what question I wanted to throw out there next, but this led to there. So how did you start to self-advocate? Like, was there a point or something that might have happened that forced you to self-advocate, or for yourself, or did you just see it as, okay, this isn't being talked about, let me jump in and use my voice?
So go ahead, CJ.
You sure?
Yes, go ahead.
For me, I think it happened the first day I was diagnosed.
Okay.
That was when I entered into the doctor's office after finding out over the phone that I was a type 2 diabetic. And he wanted to just proceed and start off with insulin. And I'm like, no. I'd rather just go ahead and just start taking the medication, oral medication, and work on my diet and my exercise. And just went from there. And then also just trying to advocate to get into the diabetes education programs. So, you know, it's just little things, but for me, it just started like
immediately.
That second.
Okay, can I ask a question? Especially since we have a very mixed group, right? You know, we have type 1s and type 2s. Can I ask why you were against going on insulin when that was the first thing that they said?
That's a good question. I think for me, I probably had a stigma at the time
Okay.
with insulin. And then it just seemed like we were just jumping there instead of just going, changing your diet and changing your exercise. So I think it was a combination of the two. And now that it's almost 3 years later, I started to learn a whole lot more that it's not a failure if you have to use insulin. Okay, but back then, yeah, I think that was definitely a stigma. I'm willing to admit it.
And and that is
It's still a
something that
stigma today.
I was getting ready to say, that stigma, around insulin being bad, and it's like, it's really not bad. It's it's the tool to
If
work.
one more person offer that cinnamon and okra and stuff, I'ma scream. Like, so tired of that. You can get rid of. Oh my God. No. I'm like, I'm so done.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, because so many people, are against it, and they might be afraid to speak out or afraid to ask, why is this bad? Or why do I think this is bad? So I appreciate you for sharing that, that part, that additional part in there. Anybody else? Was it a time or something that happened?
So I definitely can say for me, my advocacy first started at home. So of course I give, everything I think to God, but God gave me my family. And my family were definitely strong advocates of me advocating. And I can start with my mother. So I was raised, single parent by my mom. And it was funny because I was this 8-year-old, just got diagnosed in the hospital, was kind of freaking out, didn't really want to do anything. And she's like, okay, well, that's cool. You can do that for a week, but we're going to jump back on the bandwagon. So have your cry week, and then we're going to keep on going. So we did that. And it's like, I was this 8-year-old, had diabetes for like a week or so. And I'm learning about my shots. I'm counting carbs. I'm, looking at teachers' notes and everything that I need. And then it's like the next school year rolls around, and my mom's standing behind me, but I'm like giving them all the materials. Like, hi, I'm type 1 diabetic. Here's my insulin pump. Here's my blood sugar kit. And it felt like a script at first, but as the years progressed on, it became like second nature. So by the time I got to college and high school, and I'm like going on all these different trips, on these different chorus trips, on, like leadership things, your mom, your parents aren't gonna lag around behind you. I mean, they can, but no, they're not. So, I was glad I knew that early on, because, it isn't exactly a certain event that had to happen for me to learn about advocacy and to, I guess I was doing it. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was just having that support system to teach me how to say what I needed. So don't be around there feeling low and, you don't go and grab juice or tell someone you need to have food with you, say something.
No, that is really good. Liz, Miss Anita, Nicole, either one of you. Go ahead, Liz.
Mine wasn't necessarily diabetes related, but kind of. It was mental health. I've always struggled with depression and anxiety, which can also be type diabetes. And I had gotten the birth control implant in my arm, and it was supposed to help me lose weight, supposed to be great. 2 weeks in, I started developing suicidal tendencies. And I messaged my doctor, like, hey, I don't think this is working. And I got pushback, like, you need to give it a full 30 days, just keep trying. And the 30 days, I was begging them to take it out of me. But since it was considered like a surgery, technically, they didn't want to do it. And I literally had to like threaten, if you don't take it out, I will take it out. And that's going to hold you liable. Until they were finally like, okay, you can come in and get, someone else can remove it for you, not your doctor. But like, I had to fight for my own sanity, for my own health and livelihood. And that's when I realized I trust doctors, but they don't always know what's best for my body. I know my body. And, we have to work together on this, but that means I listen to you and you listen to me. So ever since then, I've always made sure to speak up when I don't feel something is right.
Anita?
For me, it's like, it's interesting. So the first person was my mom. I remember when me and my husband were dating, like, well, no, not dating. We were going on our first date. My household, it ain't no, you gonna date, then you finally meet the family. No, you meeting all of us on that first date. So he came over to the house and my mom was like, so you know my daughter's a diabetic. I'm like, Ma, yeah, I told him, okay. And she was like, you know what that is? You know what this, like, she's just grilling him. And then she tells me, Anita, go get your insulin. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? She's like, go get your insulin, go get your syringes. And I was on like NPH and I think regular at the time, because this was decades ago. And I'm like, Ma, why we getting this? She goes, he want to go out with you. He gonna do your insulin right now. I was like, and like in my mind, I'm like, well, this was a nice date. I'm never gonna see him again. Like that was the end of it. Like, but so it kind of started with my mom, like just throwing it out there like that. And then I started not being as self-conscious about it. But then I think what pushed me, it was a secret I kind of held, like my husband didn't even know about it. And it came out when, I'm not gonna cry. I found out a little boy was being picked on at school and everything because of his medical devices and all of that stuff. And he was a type 1 diabetic. And he ended up killing himself because of it. And I had attempted suicide. And I kept that secret like with me. Like I didn't even tell my husband, I didn't tell anybody. And knowing that this little boy was going through something similar to what I was going through. And he took the route and that was it. I posted my video and I finally said, you know, you're not alone. You're not the only one who contemplates this. You're not the only one who goes through this. And it forced me to have to share my story. And like, real talk, I really should not be here. Like the means I took, I should not be standing here. But I remember right as I was setting everything in place, I looked up at God and I said, I know they say you don't give us anything we can't handle, but you made a mistake with me. And I told him, I said, if by some miracle I do wake up, I said, I promise I will find my purpose. And I said, but I can't see it right now. And remember, this is after the failed miscarriages and things like that, due to diabetic complications and everything. And I woke up the next morning and then I tested my glucose levels and they were in perfect range, which they really hadn't been in a while. And I remember I sat on my bed and I just looked up and I was like, point made. I made a promise. I would never do this again and I would find my purpose. And I held that secret for so long until I saw that this little boy went through with it and actually did it. So I finally told my secret so other people would know you're not the only one. You just got to find a way to rise and be stronger. So
we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
He said he wasn't done. He told you he
No,
had the final say.
He was up there laughing at me. He was like, oh, you thought you were done.
He's just getting started.
He definitely was, you know. I think that's the thing with self-advocacy, right? You don't normally do it just for yourself. It's for someone else, right? Which kind of makes sense when you said you don't view it as self-advocacy, that it's you using your voice, because that's what we're doing. We're using our voices for those who aren't here, those who can't, who won't, who are afraid. So that's what he got you doing, sis. He has you using your voice for those.
It took a lot. I was like, I had someone interview me before and they was like, well, what means did you use? I was like, I refuse to release that information because I don't want that information being used by anybody else. I was like, but I put some memes out there and there's no way I should be here today. Literally, there is no freaking way.
That's very personal. Okay. Oh, okay. That's all right. Okay, so that was very personal. Do you find advocating hard? Like, do you find it hard for yourself? I'll start this one off. I don't find it hard at all. You're gonna listen to me. And if you won't listen to me, then I'm gonna go ahead to the next person that's gonna listen to me. And then I'm gonna go ahead to the next person that's gonna listen to me. And I think because I work in healthcare, so I already know that you can't play me. And the fact that I am my parents' child, and it's speak up for yourself. Like, you gonna do this. Nobody else can do it for you. That I personally don't find it hard, but I know that, some others might. What about you guys?
It was really hard at first. So, like I said, I'm Mexican American, and it's a very masochist culture still. So, growing up, I was told, calladita más bonita. You look prettier when you're quiet. And so all the girls are told that, you don't speak, you're quiet, you're polite. And so speaking up for yourself means being rebellious. It means not, breaking rules, not listening to authorities. And that's very frowned upon. So to go against how I was raised was really difficult. To not be portrayed as, the bitch, pretty much, to like back talk to someone. So that was really hard. But once I realized if I don't do it, no one else does, there's really no other option to not speak up.
You are absolutely right. And I know that there are so many other people that can relate to what you just said. And as Black women, I know that, we get frowned upon if we speak up, if, we come off as being aggressive, if we talk back, or if we just speak up, and I think that it's very important that we remind people that that's not being rebellious or being aggressive. It's you're defending yourself. You are trying to find the answers for something that you need that's related to your livelihood. And I always want to remind people of that this is your right. Yes, sometimes we go against, our parents. I was raised a good Catholic girl, so I understand, right? and if you know me, then you know that, listen, every other word out my mouth is, I'm like a sailor, right? But it's, when you want to be here. We want to be here the next day. And we are trying to live a healthy lifestyle, not just live, but live a healthy lifestyle. We have to speak up. They don't listen to us, as females in general, when we walk into an emergency room or a doctor's office, they already aren't listening to what we're saying and then add on to us being women, our racial background, right? They're already not listening to us, which also, so I'm going to throw another question in there. So answer that first one, right? But one of the questions that we also got, because as we're talking about is self-care hard, it was advocating for yourself in a hospital setting. So I want to throw both of those out there to you guys. You might not have been in that situation for the hospital setting, which is fine. But if you have, if you can add that in the mix of if self-care has ever been hard for you, let's do it.
I would say, like me, okay, so I developed a really big mouth. When I was little, I did. My mom, we used to get picked on in school, me and my twin brother and my little sister and stuff like that. And I remember my mom told me, she was like, Anita, with that mouth you have, you really letting somebody else do this to you? And I was like, but then I'll get in trouble. She goes, that school don't want me up there. She was like, so you speak your piece and you do what you need to do. So I kind of had a big mouth from jump. I blame my mom for that, love her, but yeah, that was all her fault. So when it came to, I remember when I was diagnosed and my mom was just like, there's something wrong with her and everything, we couldn't figure it out. And the doctor was like asking so many random questions and stuff. And then they started getting very specific questions. And my mom looked at me and I looked at her, and like I was in my senior year of high school by then. And so my mom goes, okay, no, stop with all this sorry for the language, bullshit. She was like, what's wrong with her? And the doctor was like, well, she might have diabetes. And again, at the time, the only thing we knew about diabetes was obesity. And I was like this big, like I was like 79 pounds. I was scrawny, everything. Like, oh my God, I was able to like hula hoop with a Cheerio and stuff. But my mom was like, there's no way she can be diabetic. She's not big enough and everything. And the doctor had to sit there and school us. So time went on and everything. And then not even a year, I got hit with diabetic nerve damage. And I remember I'm reading up on it and I'm trying to tell the doctors, I think I have diabetic nerve damage. And they're telling me, well, you just got diagnosed. There's no way you can have nerve damage. You haven't had diabetes that long. And they're like just going on and on and on. And I finally sat them down and I was like, you ever think you just diagnosed me late, but I've had diabetes for a while and it went that long untreated? And it was like they sat there and they were like, and then they started looking through all my charts from like 7th, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th grade. And they noticed like that weight drop just continued. It never changed. And they were like, oh. And so then they were like, okay, so they went back and they were like, I should have been diagnosed in 8th grade. I didn't get diagnosed till my senior year of high school. So then they finally did the test for nerve damage and it was finally confirmed. But I was just like, I had to say it. Like, y'all just acting like this stuff don't happen or anything. But this is like, let me know what's going on so I know how to treat this, so I know what to do next. And even now, it still continues. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was a video I had posted where I kind of passed out at work because of a hypo. And I woke up in the back of an EMT or the ambulance, and the EMTs were taking me to the hospital. And I'm just like, I'm already annoyed and ticked off because they left my bag and everything at my job. And my bag has my state ID. It had my PDM, which talks to my insulin pump. It had my reader, which controlled my CGM. And I'm like, y'all taking me away from this. Y'all getting ready to deactivate all my devices. And I'm like going off on them. And they were like, well, somebody from your job gonna bring it. I was like, look, y'all gonna stop and make sure somebody bringing it from my job. And when I got into the hospital, I remember they were like, we want to inject, we want to give you whatever, that sugar and all of that stuff. And I was like, no. And they were like, well, what do you normally do? I said, normally I eat some damn food. And if you had my PDM, I would suspend my insulin for about half an hour to try and get my levels up. And they were like, oh. And I was like, so y'all got some food for me to eat? And they literally brought back all this food and I'm sitting there eating the food. And I was telling them, I said, if I had my reader, I can show you I've been low for the past couple of days. So something's wrong. And that was when they started running all the blood tests and everything. And it turned out I had a UTI. And that's what triggered all the lows and why I couldn't come out of like 53. Like I'd be like 53 for like a whole day and it just wasn't coming up. But yeah, I've steady been loud about it because sometimes they just do things statistically and by the books and they don't think about there's an alternative way of handling stuff.
Mhm.
Yes, you definitely, I've absolutely had to advocate for myself in the ED. I won't get into those stories, but I have absolutely had to advocate for myself in the emergency room, in the inpatient setting. The three of you, anyone else?
So, I mean, I guess going back to your first question, is it hard? I would say it's not exactly hard, but the hardest parts that I've seen were one at two different times. So younger me, who's like in elementary, middle school, the problem I would see, especially with one specific teacher, I tell her, you know, like something's wrong, I don't feel good. And sometimes she'd have the audacity to say that, you know, I think she's faking. And most of those times it would be like the very, very complete opposite where I'd be like, you know, 300-400. Irony. Fast forwarding onto college, I was a really big avid student leader. And oh, another example back in elementary school is I remember one day we had a field trip. And like some days, especially when I first got diagnosed, and that honeymoon period ends, you get spikes, you get a bunch of everything. So it's like sometimes I'd have to go home, sometimes it would be high. you know, like we all know, it can be kind of unpredictable. And we had a field trip that day, and I came in and she told me if my blood sugar was above a certain number, I wasn't going with them. I didn't know at the time that she couldn't do that because I was so young, but you know, like people think, you know, you're diagnosed young, they really don't know about it. They can kind of do whatever, you know, they want to. And like I was saying, fast forwarding to college, I was a really huge student leader advocating in different settings. And the problem that I would see a lot of times, and it would seem like it would be with the same people, is ableism. And it would be like, oh, okay, well, you can do this. Well, obviously, you can come to this meeting. Obviously, you can do this list of tasks we have for you. Whereas I do this, but I work all day. I study all night. I have an internship. I have other orgs. And it's like all these other things on top of diabetes that people don't take into consideration, because as a lot of us with diabetes can probably attest to, you know, we want to get as close to normal as possible. So sometimes it'll be like, okay, we're going to do A, B, and C. And the normal person thinks, okay, why are you doing so much? Well, we want to attempt to do it, but we may not always be able to execute everything like a normal person can. So that's where the accommodations come in. But then that's also the confusion of, why does she get to do that? Why does he get to do that? And it actually became a problem where I had really bad flu symptoms. I think it might have been the flu or some virus at a point in college. And I had I think it was a bio exam, an anatomy exam that I had to miss. My blood sugar was going crazy. I was under the weather. And I talked to my professor about it, and thank God I had accommodations in place. But his initial response was, no, you cannot do anything about this. You cannot retake it because, you know, some other students have cheated in the past. This wouldn't be fair to the rest of the students. And, you know, this is a thing, like, we didn't ask for any of this. And especially when you find those with disabilities, those with diabetes who want to work even harder, you know, those are the people, you know, we're not trying to just get by. We're not trying to, you know, beat the system or anything like that. We actually want to do something. And I think it's a thing that people look at a checkbox like, oh, they have a disability, oh, they have diabetes, they probably can't do X, Y, and Z. Whereas, as I was talking to someone the other day, people with diabetes, people with disabilities, we, I think, have just created one of the best work ethics there are, because we have to put all these accommodations into place just to do the same task that anyone else can do and get the job done. But when it comes to advocating in the hospital setting, I think it comes in different ways, because especially if you're comorbid and you have different disabilities in addition to diabetes, it can be very tricky. So for me, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and with that can come steroid use and like a lot of things that, you know, will keep you stable. Problem with that is that it runs your blood sugar up. So next thing you know, you're in the doctor's office and they're like, okay, you take this, you're done. But then you have to ask the questions, okay, is this going to make my blood sugar go up? Am I going to be in DKA and throwing up? Will I be able to do anything else? How long do I have to watch this for? And it's just this whole addition of things that people don't always look at. So, you know, being specialized in one area, but then also being that full circle person. And I even think before I got diabetes and diagnosed, kind of like Anita's points and stories with our mothers, that's where the advocacy started, because I still remember they weren't going to, you know, check me out that Monday, because like that weekend, even prior, before, I was like, something is wrong. This is just not like her. She calls the doctor's office, tells them the whole story, and they're like, well, you know, she didn't get here till like Thursday. But my mom's like, no, that's not gonna work. So get there Monday morning before the people open, and doctor walks in after checking me out. It's like, yeah, she has diabetes. get her to the 10th floor, which is the helicopter floor, don't make any stops. And that was the start of it. But I just think if I had waited till Thursday, Lord knows what would happen. So, sometimes like it's us advocating for ourselves, but it's also those external people who know us better than we know ourselves sometimes, who, are part of that advocation.
And they help teach us how to go about continuing with it.
Exactly.
I think that what I would tell people who are wondering about advocating in a hospital setting is, if you're in the ED and something isn't going wrong, ask for a charge nurse. Ask for whoever's in charge. If you're admitted on the floor, ask for the charge nurse. You can ask for a patient advocate. There are always ways for you to advocate for someone to come so you can express your concerns to them. Don't ever be afraid to not speak up. If all else fails and you are able to leave there, then you do that and you go somewhere else. Is it unfortunate that you might have to take those steps? Absolutely, but it's better than the alternative of whatever.
And if I may add to it, Kylene, I think it's important to, as many times as we go to the doctor or our endos or whoever we go to, find someone you may be comfortable with. So sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, especially in our case scenario, where it's like, we're women of color. Find someone who identifies for you. I know that's something that I had to do when I was younger. It's like I would dread going, but I knew there was that one person that if I had those concerns, or even if I didn't, that I could just go to them and ask them this question, like, do I really need this? Like, okay, what's the real scoop of why they put me on this? Like, I don't get this.
My doctor is leaving me. I've had my doctor. I started seeing her when I turned 18. I was diagnosed at 17. I turned 18, so I couldn't see my pediatrician anymore. She's been my primary since I was 18 with this disease. And she's retiring. And I got to find another doctor. And I'm not happy. Like, this woman has been she's been my ride or die since everything, from like the miscarriages to the thyroid complications. You guys saw I was just recently screened for colon cancer, all of that stuff. She's been there for everything, fighting with me for all of it. And that's almost 23 years I've had this woman. Now I got to find someone else. I am not looking forward to it. I don't even want to contemplate having to find someone else and bring them up to speed. It's I'm dreading the hell out of this. But
it might not be as hard or bad as you think that it might be, though. And I say this not coming from a healthcare worker. I have removed my healthcare worker hat. I'm saying this from an adult woman who was diagnosed not just with diabetes, because you know me and you know that that's the bottom of my issues, right? That is the bottom of anything that I advocate for personally. That's. And I went through many of providers. It's okay. That process is not as bad as everyone. That's the one thing I think that I just want to say in this conversation. It's not as bad. Everyone's story is not as bad as people make it out to be, right? The transition to a new provider, it might be seamlessly easy, but you're already going in it with fear that's going to make it harder for you to even transition to have that good appointment. I say this, I know you, so I'm going to say
and
this.
Bad doctors, so that's why.
And I understand that, and I'm not even going to get into the story of having bad doctors, because everyone says find a doctor that looks like you and yada, 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 and doctors that look like me have been my worst doctors. I'll leave that there at that, right? But I want people to take away from what we just talked about. And then I have a really good question. And then I think we're closing in on the time, is that advocacy looks different for every person. And people have to remember that. There's no right or wrong way to advocate. You can advocate quietly, you can advocate loudly, you can advocate any kind of way that you want to advocate. It's for you. And if you choose to use your voice for someone else, then you do that. But I don't want anyone to ever feel forced into being an advocate for everyone else besides themselves. It's you first and then others, should you choose.
And that's like one of the best things to do. Like I always tell people, like when I get asked questions about the diabetic nerve damage and all of that, I've told everyone, I was like, you got to figure out what works for you.
Yes.
I'm like, because what I
Exactly.
did may not work for you. And I
Yes.
can't vouch for that. I can only say what worked for me. I'm like, so you got to sit down. You got to go through it with your doctor and everybody else and find out what is going to work specifically for you.
Mhm.
Sometimes you gotta
Kylene,
tell that
Yes.
doctor, get them heads out of them statistics and let's focus on this right here. Like, stop bringing statistics into this. Focus on me and what's been going on in my life for my time frame right now.
Yep.
And that's all I can tell people. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah,
And
and it's the same
Kylene.
thing with diet as well. Like for me, a lot of people approach me. It's like, okay, well, how are you able to get these sort of numbers or whatnot? What can I do? And it's like, well, it depends on specifically for you because you might have another disease on top of diabetes. It may not work for you like it has worked for me. So you have to work with your healthcare providers and find that plan for you.
Yep.
You can't do what I do.
And I mean, I think like it also comes to the point with what both of you said, especially when it's other people. People also have to remember your story isn't written by another person. So no one should force you into advocating. So, you know, a lot of times, I don't know if you all have seen, but I've seen it on many occasions. People will think like, well, so-and-so has this, so go ask them. Or, you know, it's like that direct sin rather
Do you
than
follow
coming.
me and Anita on Instagram? Because that is us, okay?
Yeah.
That is absolutely our inbox where people are, so you or this or that or do this. So yes, you preaching to two people over here that live that life where this, and I think that's why I made it my point. Like I had notes and I was like, make sure you mention you first and you do it for others if you want to.
Mhm.
Because oftentimes people forget that we're human and we have to advocate for ourselves first and foremost. So yes, I'm so glad that you said that because y'all heard her, right? Don't slide into people's inboxes telling them to do something. That's not how it works. It's okay for a conversation, but you can't force a person to do something. That's not how it works. So
Yeah.
Shay, thank you for that one.
Like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. You gotta fill yourself first.
Thank you. All right. So, and Liz, I'm gonna start with you on this one, okay? I'm just giving you a heads up. So, what would you say to some like tips for a person that is entering the world of self-advocacy? What do you tell them to them?
I would say, don't be afraid first and foremost. Like the absolute worst someone can say if you ask for something is no. And then you maybe go find someone else and ask them instead. So never give up, like be persistent. Like I sometimes have to picture, I helped my mom with a lot of her medical issues and going to all of her chemo treatments. I had to speak up for her because sometimes she'd be passed out and couldn't speak for herself. So I sometimes have to ask myself, would I let this happen to my mom? Absolutely not. I would speak up for her. And I sometimes just need to do that to be able to speak up for myself. And it's something I'm working on. Like we all try to speak up for ourselves, but sometimes that fear can come in and you just kind of have to separate yourself from it. And if that fear does come in, ask someone to come with you. Like I will talk to my fiance about things that happen all the time. And He'll be willing to go with me to my doctor appointments or to make a phone call or call to make an appointment for me. So know that you're not alone, and that just because you're self-advocating doesn't mean you're alone. It's not just yourself. It means that there's other people with you. You just need to ask for help.
That's the
That's
tricky
good.
question though.
Wait,
When
you
to
wait.
know to ask
You
for
wait.
help.
I'm coming back to you. You stay there. You hold on. I'm doing this strategically, okay? You wait. Miss CJ, what are you throwing to her?
Well, for me, for those who might know me personally, I'm a quiet person. I'm reserved. So this condition here has pushed me to limits that I never thought possible. I say that you need to be assertive, you need to be direct, and clearly state what you need. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. For me, my inspiration is my family and the community that I serve. And in order for me to do what I need to do, I have to be assertive. So I would definitely say that. Second, know your patient's rights. Read up on it, research it, apply it. And then third, I almost forgot. And also acknowledge your mistakes. We are going to make mistakes along the way. So admit it and keep it moving. And at least that's some of my three.
Those are good ones though, because there are people who are reserved and quiet, such as yourself. So hearing from someone, you know, that they can relate to, that you probably have opened the door for them, you know, that them hearing that was what they needed to hear. Shay, but wait, I'm throwing something in there to you, okay? Because, you know, you're a graduate and things like that. What tips are you giving to those college students that are trying to self-advocate for self?
Okay, so college students in particular, go to college and get in touch with your DRC. And DRC is your Disability Resource Center. Through them, you are going to have like that family support. They are going to be there if things go wrong. They're going to provide you with resources. Some places they might even can help you find other support groups. But for a lot of schools, that is where your accommodations are going to come in. So I can say for mine specifically, our system is all online. So, you know, like CJ said, if you are that quiet student or you're just busy, can't always, you know, go have this official meeting, everything like that, you go online, you sign up, you have this, you know, brief little course you have to do. I would say in person, but things have changed. But that actually makes you official, like, okay, this person has established disability, and you would go in and you'd send a letter to your professors. The letter's already created. You literally have to press a button and send the email. You can print it if you want to save it for your record. And that's actually one of my biggest rules of advocacy. Always keep your record. Whether it's your email thread, whether it's, you know, printing out everything, always keep a record of, you know, anything. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So that's literally how it is, and definitely in college, because they will say, oh, I forgot, oh, I never received it. Actually, you received it at such and such day at such and such time. So when it comes to that, you have to be precise. Student-wise, and then also people in general, find support groups. So for me, there really wasn't one on campus yet, and it actually happened by not on a whim, but just an interesting kind of chance situation, because I was one of the co-founders of my College Diabetes Network chapter at UNCW. And I started the chapter back in, I think it might have been 2019 or so. The problem is we had a huge hurricane, so everything got shut down. And when we came back, it was like we had to restart. So another kid wanted to create a chapter, but one had already been started. So he had his his student organization and I had a chapter and we combined them. The thing is, his student organization was named Hawks for Hearts. And we're like, no, that's not going to work here. So we changed it to Dubs for Diabetes. So W, Dub, UNCW, and then like all of us were type 1 diabetes, affected by someone, an ally, something like that. And the beauty of our meetings is that we will do the business, do everything that we need to do, talk about advocacy and different events. But a lot of times we end it with just talking about ridiculous things that happen in diabetes, whether it was in advocacy, whether it wasn't. And, you know, some of them would be absolutely crazy, but we just laugh at it. And it was just like taking all those emotions that, you know, most people would think are bad or think to just cry or have a fit over, and find joy in it with other people. And that's where that support system comes in, so that you can go to someone and your advocacy effort doesn't work. You can be like, okay, is it just me, or did this happen to any of y'all? And you won't feel like you're alone. But I think the biggest thing out of all of this, out of all the seriousness, out of all the paperwork, the frustrations, is to have fun. Because advocacy isn't a grade, advocacy isn't one size fits all. And honestly, this is something that is for you. It can help someone down the line, and that's great and that's pretty. But right now it's for you, and you have to focus on you. Yes. So, you know, have fun with it, do what it is that you need to do, take care of yourself, and, you know, graduate from life, do have fun, you know, do what you need.
Live life.
Those were good. Okay, Anita, this is a challenge for you, okay? You got to do it in 2 minutes or under.
Oh, great.
Oh, wow.
You got 2 minutes.
It's actually interesting because Kylene, you know, like I'm 40 and everything. So when I was in college and all of that stuff, we ain't have the diabetes online community and none of that. Like that did not exist. So I starting to advocate, it was like Shay said, it was just speaking up for me. Like when I was in high school, I was the only type 1 in my entire high school. So they were just like, what do we do? Like, how do we handle this? What is this gonna, you know? And I had to tell them, I had to inform them, you know, when I got to college. And again, I'm still learning how to walk because of the complications due to diabetic nerve damage. And I had to inform them. I had to tell them. It wasn't necessarily about, I want to help everybody else. It was more, look, I don't want to die on campus. So this is what I need y'all to know. This is what I need y'all to understand. This is how I need y'all to react. Like it was really for me. And it was just for the safety of me being here. And it's continued around my friends and everything. After my mom did what she did with, you know, my husband, all my friends had to give me an injection moving forward. That was the done deal. If you could not give me an injection or understand this and this and this, we can't hang out. Because if I pass out and you don't know how to test my glucose levels or do this, I can't be around you. I cannot associate with you. So it just became that. It was more, I'm advocating for my safety. And then it just grew and expanded from there.
I mean, it's interesting that
you
say
wrapped it.
Anita.
You did it. Good job. Good job. I'm proud of you. Okay, so we're literally winding down in our minutes, right? And I know that this is a topic that can go on and on and on and on and on, because it has so many different pieces to it. I think that what I would tell someone who is looking into becoming a self-advocate is, you got this. Like, you know, you got this. It's time, it's trial and error. There are days that you're gonna be frustrated. There are gonna be good days, there are gonna be bad days. It's okay. It's okay to take a minute to step back, regroup, and start over again until you are completely comfortable in moving forward. It's so you got this. Like that's That's my motto for everything is you got this, because it's no more, no less, right? Like you got this. But I would love to thank everyone who tuned in for this conversation. It was a pleasure sitting and speaking with you guys, meeting new faces, seeing faces that I see often. So Casey, we're gonna hand it back to you.
One more thing I just want to say.
You got 60 seconds. No, I'm joking.
Stop. No, I'm like, seriously, stop with this perfection, excuse my language, bullshit. Okay? It ain't ever gonna be perfect, and you need to accept it and you need to love it. Like, it's not perfection. It's never gonna be, ain't nobody on this planet perfect. So stop with perfections. Like, learn and grow. You encounter some errors, grow from it, learn for the next time. Yeah. Get rid of this "we gotta be perfect" BS, and you'll see how much easier and how much better life can be.
Anita, that's a great transition.
That was real good. That was good. It's true, you know. I hate to piggyback off of you, but you are right. You know, you can't be scared of it. To people who are scared to use insulin, don't be. To people that have to use steroids and they're worried about spiking, do not be. I am a steroid queen. I want to live. I have to use steroids. You have to find what works for you, and it's okay.
You're not a failure.
You are not. You can't fail at something that's tailored for you.
Yep.
All right, ladies, I know we can talk about this on and on. And no, I mean, I always say you're the expert of your own body, of your own diabetes. And I really feel like this is just the topic of this conversation, and as it always should be. Like, ultimately, you know what works for you. And if you don't know in the moment, you're going to learn, you're going to figure it out. And like Kylene said, you got this. So thank y'all so much. And I was going to say, Anita, that was a great transition for people to go back and watch Jiggy's session about self-compassion, because yes, that it's so true. But thank y'all so much for joining. We have another live session at 6, so we have to, wrap this one up. But this was amazing, ladies. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.